So good evening, everyone. I'm Vikram. I'm part of the outreach team at Krea University, and I'm really happy to be associated with the university from October 2018. I'm really happy to welcome all of you to our first e-open house. This is a regular event for us in outreach where we host open houses across the country, and we do it twice a year. This year we had planned to host them in April and May, but unfortunately because of the public health situation, we couldn't host it. But I'm happy that all of you have joined us here today, and we have a extremely good set of faculty members and people who've joined us today from various offices at Krea University to share experiences of Krea. So Krea, I'm sure many of you have heard about us, you've done your research, but just to introduce to you a little bit about Krea. It's a very unique effort, specially conceived and designed to address the unprecedented challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. Krea University is really pioneering the interwoven learning approach, a new paradigm ideal for the connected world. This weaves together the arts and the sciences, creativity and action, Eastern and Western practices. It draws upon profound learnings of the past and present to ready students for the future. Krea University will thus shape a new generation of adaptable, resilient leaders, giving them critical thinking skills and ethical grounding needed to forge ahead. Krea University will ensure that university education stretches far beyond delivering hard skills for immediate employment and deliver lifelong value for impactful leadership in a fast-changing world. The School of Interwoven Arts and Sciences at Krea University offers a distinctive undergraduate curriculum in humanities, social sciences, literature, arts, and sciences, taught by distinguished faculty from some of the world's finest academic institutions. Our academic program emphasizes on our guiding principles of interwoven learning, a multi-directional approach to knowledge that encourages creativity, critical thinking, communication, contemplation, cross-disciplinary approaches, real-world implementation, and the ability to negotiate unanswered questions. So before we begin the session today, I just thought we'll show you a little video. It's just a 5-minute video that the students have put together, the first cohort at Krea, and what they have to say. So Ranjit, can we please play the video?
Educational institution is to prepare our students to think and make persuasive arguments which force the world to change.
The idea of interwovenness is that the very many concepts that we think are very critical, whether it's a sense of history, whether it's a sense of writing and oral communications, whether it's the fluency with data and digital, the idea of ethical decision making, get introduced, reintroduced, affirmed, reaffirmed in different contexts.
The reason I joined Krea is because I wanted to study and experience a multitude of subjects at the same time. I've already seen how subjects interweave. For instance, scientific reasoning interweaves with philosophy, social and historical interweaves with data analytics.
At Krea, we're looking at history as central to understanding social change. We want students to be able to appreciate the intellectual evolution of different disciplines, whether mathematical or scientific, literary or philosophical.
At the end of the writing and oral communications course, students are writing in ways that are thoughtful, complex, and nuanced.
I have changed from writing I feel, I think statements to writing arguments well substantiated with evidence and text.
The creative expression course demands that students think differently, out of the box, in a way that they have never done before.
In the first trimester, we were given projects such as making our own raps and making our own podcasts. And we did all of this in our media lab. And our media lab's been fully equipped with virtual reality equipment, which we play around with, whether it be games or even painting around.
foremost principle that we had in mind while designing student life was self-governance or self-creation. So we had to wait for the students to really come into our campus and work with us to co-create the student life experience.
The favorite part about life at Krea is the friendly environment that is being created among students, faculty and other members living at the campus. Each and every person over here is encouraged to voice their own opinions.
Trying to do is simply expose people to just the kinds of experiences that I've had, for which I'm extraordinarily grateful to a lot of people, starting with parents and just a lot of others giving me that space.
Sri City is a great place for outdoor activities. The Satavedu forest is just a couple of kilometers in that direction, and the Pulikat Lake is about 5-6 kilometers east from where we are. Both of these places are very nice hiking trails and biking trails. So overall here we can plan a lot of great outdoor activities.
Take a lot of pride in having sports and well-being as an integral part of our culture. The enthusiasm the students have been showing is very, very positive.
When I'm not in class, there are so many other things to do. Right from thought-provoking and challenging assignments, guest lectures, and various other club activities. There's a general culture of being engaged with the world at large, critical thinking and respectful discourse, which I feel add a great deal of value outside the classroom. I would recommend Krea to anybody who would like an education that pushes them to evolve at an individual level.
Thank you so much, Anjit. Thank you. And I see a lot of questions pouring in the chat box. Thank you so much for that. And please continue to type in questions as they come. So to begin the day, first I'd like to welcome all the panelists who are joining me here today to help you navigate through this process of choosing a right career or a university education. Everybody from the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Sundar Ramaswamy, Professor Bishnu Mahapatra, Professor Akhila Ramnarayan, Ms. Kala Anand, Ms. Kanchi Khanna and Akshay, and Sarthak and Sanjana, who are our students. Thank you all for joining us today this evening. And I'd obviously like to begin from Dr. Sundar Ramaswamy, who's really been a constant support and a regular in all our open houses. Thank you, Dr. Sundar, for joining us. And to introduce him, so Dr. Sundar is a professional economist, an educator, and an academic administrator with extensive experience both in India and in the United States. He's obviously currently the Vice Chancellor at Krea University. He's on leave from Middlebury College, one of the top-ranked liberal arts institutions in the US, and has had sabbaticals at the World Bank, Vanderbilt University, IFMR, and the Madras School of Economics. His passion for teaching, his academic work, and his administrative accomplishments have been recognized with numerous honors and awards, both in India and in the United States. Dr. Sundar received his PhD in economics from Purdue, MA from Delhi School of Economics, and a BA honors in economics from St. Stephen's College. Dr. Sundar, thank you so much for joining us, and we'd request you to share a few thoughts.
Thank you, Vikram, and good evening to all of you, students, counselors, parents, guests, and also my colleagues. It's great to be part of this e-open house, and thank you to Vikram and the outreach team for putting this together. I mean, I think this is an interesting forum and we are all getting used to this, and hopefully we don't get too used to this because we still like the idea of meeting people in person, and hopefully we'll get to do that in near time. The reason I start with this is, a couple of years ago when a few of us were sitting around thinking about what was the idea of Krea in terms of a mission. If we had to set up a university and a new university in India, what should the mission of Krea be? And if you go to our website, and it starts off by talking about preparing humanity for an unpredictable world. I don't think any of us in our wildest dreams or nightmares would have thought the unpredictability that we were thinking of was going to play itself in our very first year as it currently has. But it also in some ways teaches us because, throughout history, we have been faced with these kinds of shocks. And this one is particularly challenging because it started off and it still remains a public health crisis of a global nature. But then very quickly it became, because of all the lockdowns, an economic crisis, something I as an economist pay particular attention to. And then if you've just been watching the news, both in this country, but certainly what's happening in Europe and US, it's also morphing into a social justice crisis in terms of what is the role of us as human beings towards each other. And all of these things are something that every university should be concerned about. And so even at Krea, even just this first year, and you'll hear more about this from my colleagues and the students as we conclude this first year, we were trying to set up a university where obviously it's important the kinds of programs you're teaching, the degree programs and the foundational courses that you talk about and take as a student, but it's equally important that we are preparing you for life. And I know that sounds a bit audacious and very ambitious, but I'm thinking the absolute classical sense of the great universities of the world, that really what we came around when we came to thinking about Krea is while we are really focused on the here and the now, but we have our eyes set on what kind of university that we will plant the seeds today so that it will be talked about as really one of the a life-affirming and a life-changing university. And I think we should have that ambition. It is unfortunate that there's not a single university from India in the top 100. And we should try to raise that bar and be that way in terms of how we admit students, the kind of curriculum that we are pushing forward, and you'll hear more about interwoven learning, the kind of faculty that we hire. And I think the biggest thing for me as a takeaway, having been in this position since its inception a couple of years ago, and then watching the students come through the doors of Krea in August, and then now finishing a year successfully. Just last week, we celebrated the end of the first year. I think we take very seriously, the faculty, and certainly I and the administration, that while each of you come to a college and you've come in a way prepared by the Indian school system to study a particular stream, we want to sort of make you unlearn certain things so that you're prepared to relearn and learn different ways of thinking, right? So the first year, if you spend some time on the website, we don't make you think of a major right away. It's really about reimagining learning that we start. Because with the advent of the internet and certainly with Google, learning has now become outsourced and become very easy to things available on the internet. And there's a fundamental difference between learning, information, knowledge. And I think it's important that as an educational system and as what the university is trying to do is get you all to think, get you all to learn, and learn how to learn, and try and do this with a sense of humor, ethics, humility, collaborative sense towards your fellow classmate, and respect for people around you and the community that you're living in. So I always talk about at this stage, the linkages between humanity, the machine world that we are now in, and the natural world. And it's all come to a head in the last 15, 20 years in very frightening pace, that how we prepare you and your children is very critical and central to us. And I think the one thing that I want to sort of have you think about, especially when we are, even though it's been a residential campus, but even when we have gone online in the last 3 months, and there may be bouts of online experiences even down the line, depending on how this COVID-19 situation unfolds. What's very interesting for me is that we have tried to emulate the sense of community even online. It's not the same as being in place and catching up with your friends and professors, but I think the sense of community, both intellectual and social, is something that I hold very dearly, because I think that's really as important as the curriculum and the trying to solve the world's greatest problems that Krea has set itself as a mission to do. I should also say that Krea, while the focus of this particular session will be on the School of Interwoven Arts and Sciences, what is also impressive to note is that we have a graduate school of business, which is celebrating its 20th year, which offers an MBA and a PhD. And you're all too young to think about that, but you may come back to it. But what is interesting is that the business school, which is fairly ranked, very highly ranked, and especially in certain areas like finance and data and so on, is really working with the undergraduate faculty to think of a business studies minor that will be available to the incoming class and also the existing class, which has just finished its first year. And the third aspect of Krea, which we are very proud of, there are a number of research centers which are really at the cutting edge of what I would call social sector, poverty alleviation, public policy, and impact in terms of economic, socio-economic impact at the ground level. These operate out of offices in Delhi, Chennai, in a number of other states. They are funded by some of the world's famous foundations and agencies like the World Bank. And they have been around for about 10 or 12 years, many of them since that time. Some of them are a couple of years old. But they do work in the areas of poverty alleviation, digital financial inclusion, women's empowerment, economic development, both at the local community level, state level, national and international. And the reason I mention this is because a university is ultimately a sort of a center for knowledge production. Teaching is critical, but research is equally important. And the faculty are very committed to research. And what we also want for our students is the ability to both undertake research projects on their own, but maybe in collaboration with faculty. And certainly these research centers that exist all over the country offer interesting opportunities for internships and maybe eventually career prospects for those of you who are interested in. So when you think about Krea as a university, which is only a couple of years old, it's a very interesting way in which it's come together with the School of Interwoven Arts and Sciences that you'll hear more about today, the IFMR Graduate School of Business, and the centers which are all available for the undergraduates to think about. And the last thing that I want to say is we are very, very mindful of the current situation. And we have been hard at work. And I'll give you a sense for you to think about what makes Krea in some ways very special and distinct. We went into a lockdown about a week before the national lockdown on March 22nd. We were lucky. I think we called it right. We may hopefully will not always be lucky, but we try and use the same decision-making process to make sure everybody's safe and secure. We then decided, because we have a new faculty and we have a new cohort of students, what does going online mean? Many colleges and many universities in India decided to go online right away. Many of them decided not to and wait it out and see what happens. I like the approach that my dean and the faculty said, let's do a trial week and see what works, because it's not just how we provide the resources from our end. We also want to make sure students who have gone back to their homes in all parts of the country and we have no idea what their connectivity issues are they even going to be able to handle the lesson plan and so on. So we spent a week thinking about the trial, and then we took it 2 weeks at a time. It's sort of an intentional, deliberate way to make sure that it was not just about rushing and finishing it. We wanted to make sure that the standards that we had set, which are very high, and having done 2 trimesters of it, could we try and meet that high bar that we had set for ourselves. And I think it was only after about 4 weeks that we decided that we will finish out the entire trimester online. And I offer this as a little vignette about the kind of care that I think my colleagues bring to this. Not only are they really strong teachers and scholars, But I think what I've appreciated watching them, and I've loved this aspect because this is what got me into teaching and professorship when I became an academic years ago, is they care about the students. I hear this not just from the faculty, I actually hear this from the students, that people went over and beyond to make sure that trimester 3 ended really well for the students. Now, I'm not going to say it was on par. I think all the students really wanted to come back to the campus. They wanted to interact with their friends. They wanted to close out the semester on a high. And I do really feel for that something got robbed from them. But I think, what's the old proverb? When nature throws you lemons, you make lemonade. This is a classic case of how lemonade got made by my colleagues and by the willing students of the first batch of Krea. So I think the incoming batch has a great opportunity to build on this foundation, because how often do you get a chance? I mean, when I went to college in Delhi University, I think I joined the year, it was turning 100, which was great. It was a wonderful celebration. But how often do you get the chance to join a university and help create the foundation and the culture, the intellectual, the social, the community, and create what will become, and you have a role to play in the kind of community and the university that you want to create. So I invite you to stay back, listen to my colleagues, ask questions, and at the end of it, if we haven't answered your questions, we're always available. So with that, welcome and thank you. On to you back, Vikram.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sundar, for your leadership and for sharing the vision of Krea with all the audiences that we have today. We now have Professor Bishnu Mahapatra. Actually, I was thinking that I don't think we've had so many people in one open house before today. I mean, we have the Dean of the school, we have the Divisional Chairs, we have the Vice Chancellor, of course, we have Office of Student Life, Office of Partnerships, Career Services, and of course, Outreach. So again, thank you all for joining us. And on to you, Professor Bishnu. So just to introduce, so Professor Bishnu Mahapatra is the Dean of the School of Interwoven Arts and Sciences and a Professor of Politics at Krea University. Bishnu is a political scientist and a poet, an educator and a commenter on society, governance, policy, and culture. Bishnu has taught politics for more than 25 years at University of Delhi, the Jawaharlal Nehru University, and Azim Premji University. He's also a well-known Indian poet. He has had authored 4 books of poetry and translated 2 volumes of Pablo Neruda's poetry into Odia. He has a master's degree in political science from the University of Delhi, an MPhil in politics from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and a DPhil in politics from the University of Oxford. Professor Bishnu, I invite you to introduce the School of Interwoven Arts and Sciences and academics at Krea University.
Well, thank you, Barun. Thank you very much. And I'm also lucky that my Vice Chancellor, Professor Sundar Ramaswamy, laid out in the beginning what this Krea's larger philosophy is all about and the aspirations through which that we wanted to build this place. And I'm very grateful that he laid out that, so it becomes the task, my task becomes easier then. There are 2-3 things I wanted to say. That that India is, as we all know, is a kind of country of immense diversity, and it's also a country of immense aspiration. It's kind of significant number of young people, and this society is historically, even now, is kind of fizzing with ideas, if I might say so. So it's quite, it's quite an endearing thing to really think and imagine that we really want to set up an university like Krea with and thinking of higher education in a completely different way, and also combining some of the old ways in new ways and creating something absolutely which has not been experimented in the way, at least in the ecosystem that I'm familiar with about higher education. And that takes me to my school. As we all know, that is a school which has humanities, social sciences, and natural sciences. This is a school where we have divisions, not departments. And it is all being deliberately thought that we would not have departments because we wanted to create a school that has many disciplines with porous boundaries. We also thought that we would create a school where students come to learn in a way that doesn't create artificial strong boundaries, but students who can really navigate very complex social realities that we encounter in our real lives by taking ideas or by taking resources from many disciplines. And interwoven, as the term suggests, that is something about weaving, right? And it's something about that we do. Weaving is a creative work, and weaving is something that you begin. You want to put it together, and you want to weave. And while weaving, you learn how to do things. And when the weaving is complete, you know that you have really created a fabulous, beautiful design. So once you think of education like that, not as a singular, tunneled idea that I'm really coming to the university, I will take one subject, and after 3 or 4 years, I get out of the university, my undergraduate education to one subject as my subject. Krea offers you a very different kind of experience. It is an experience which tells you that, look, the world itself is too complex and layered and interwoven itself. Just take the example of the idea of sustainability. There are a lot of talk about sustainability in recent weeks and recent months in the COVID-19. People are talking about nature, people are talking about sustainability as an idea. If you look at that, simply that idea, you would see that, look, there is an economic side to the idea of sustainability, that a lot of the hidden cost of development, industrial development, other kind of development has been brought to the surface with the idea of sustainability. That you cannot keep this cost hidden, whether it is pollution by an industry or an industry polluting the river. They have to be accounted for. They have to be part of the cost that you have to take into account. Similarly, the idea of sustainability brings a very moral idea, that ethical idea. That is, for example, you want to create a society where you are not going to exhaust all the resources now. You have to keep the resources for the people who would follow you, what has been called intergenerational. I'm not going to exhaust all the water, all the resources, everything. What would the next generation do? So this is a very ethical question. Third, there is an ecological question. I want to keep the biodiversity alive. I want to keep the jungles alive. I want to keep the animals alive. I want to keep the environment alive. So if you are at Krea, you would be thinking about all these questions together. All these three things, you have to weave them together: economic, ethical, and ecological. This is just an example that how a good education really teaches you how to become a good combiner of things, how to understand connection. For a very long time, when I remember my young days when I was doing my undergraduate, we didn't really pay much attention to not what we are doing, but why we are doing. It's very important that in an educational institution, we should also emphasize not merely what we are doing, but also a great deal of self-awareness as to what we are doing. What we are doing will help us, help the society, help the larger world that we're a part of. That's again something very important. And School of Interwoven Arts and Sciences is also conceptualized along those lines, that knowledge is not a unilinear, knowledge is not a one-dimensional thing, but a multi-dimensional experience. I must say that I'm very proud of all my colleagues at School of Interwoven Arts and Sciences. They are, as our Vice Chancellor said, that it is not merely that they're committed, they're deeply creative, they're hugely ethical in terms of what they do, and also leave no stone unturned when it comes to looking after the well-being of our students. You know, because we always say that Krea is evolving as a community. We are a very new institution as far as the SIS is concerned, the School of Interwoven Arts and Sciences. It's an opportunity to build a community. And this community is being built not by one strand called the faculty or the staff of the Krea University. They're actually built with the help of all the elements or all the people in the university. The students would remain a very significant part of this building the community. And second, the education is also something where we think of how to contribute to society, how to sustain our own interest, how to get satisfaction of what we do, how to lead a meaningful life. I think more and more the younger generation are also thinking of education not merely as something that they come to university to do, but think of larger context in which they are part of. And I'm sure Krea's education at Krea would also make the students more aware of how they're located, their own responsibility, their own sense of who they are. And finally, I would say that this is a place where we pay attention to many things. We pay attention to the details. We pay attention to big ideas. We pay attention to the well-being. We pay attention to not only past and present, but also the future. This is also a place where people want to create something together. There's a certain sense of fellowship. And I'm very happy that there's so many like-minded people have come and become part of Krea University. Our students are absolutely, the first batch of students, they taught absolutely brilliant. They are full of energy and they're ready for doing things differently. They're open to new ideas. Their spirit is as much as to learn, but also to challenge. And a good university where students also come to learn by challenging the conventional ideas, challenging the received ideas. I think create an education which is ethical, which is critical, which is also sustainable in many ways. And it also gives us a greater sense of who we are in this world. I'm very happy in that sense to be a part of School of Interwoven Arts and Sciences as its dean, and it makes me great happiness in welcoming all these people that I'm talking to. I can't see any of you, but I'm really happy to be talking to you. I hope, as Professor Sundar Ramaswamy said, that in future we would meet face to face and have a greater sense of our own community while we share our ideas about Krea. Thank you, Varun.
Thank you so much, Professor Vishnu. Thank you for painting the big picture. And I think students must be very excited now to join the school. And if time permits, I'm definitely going to invite you to share one of your poems. We've heard them at so many of our internal meetings. I'll do it. I'll invite you at the end of the session. So moving on now, we have Professor Akhila Ramnarayan. Professor Akhila obviously is one of the most popular faculty members, if I can say, and she today represents all the divisional chairs that we have at Krea. So to introduce Professor Krea, she is the Divisional Chair of Literature and the Arts. She's also an Associate Professor of Practice and the Cultural Program Curator. Akhila is a writer, scholar, theatre actor, and a trained Carnatic vocalist with a PhD in post-colonial studies from the State Ohio University. A key member of Chennai's globally touring theatre company Just As Repertory, and a founding member of Performing Arts Institute Sahadya Foundation. She performs a variety of roles in both acting, writing, research, singing, music composition, production, social media design, marketing, and administration. Akhila, please come on and talk to us about the foundation here. I think if there's any faculty member who's been so closely associated to the learning outcomes, to the core and skill courses in the first year, that's you. So please share that with our audience.
Thank you for that generous introduction, Vikram. It gives me great pleasure to be here on behalf of the 3 division chairs at Krea University. I chair Literature and the Arts, and Professor Prithvi Datta Chandra Shobi chairs Humanities and Social Sciences, and Professor Shivakumar Srinivasan chairs the Sciences Division. So as has already been mentioned, we don't have departments, we have divisions, and this is a fantastic opportunity for all of us at Krea to talk across our specializations and disciplines with each other. And it's the reason why I came to Krea, that we have a small faculty cohort, a small student cohort, and we get to interact with each other and get to know each other personally. It was an opportunity of a lifetime, so I'm super excited to be here. Also, as Professor Vishnu said, we have had a fabulous first cohort. They're wonderful, engaged in their academics, fiery, revolutionary. They're trying all kinds of new things. They're open to different disciplines. And we think that it sets a great bar, and we're sure that the second cohort is going to be equally exciting, and you'll have some friends who've just done this before you. The entrepreneurial spirit at Krea is reflected not only in the work of the faculty and all the different teams and functions like outreach, like partnerships, like communications, admissions. It's also reflected in the work of the students, and there's this lovely feeling of all of us being in it together, which I very much enjoy about being at Krea University. Ranjit, if you can just put up my my presentation. I have 3 short slides. All I want to talk about is a little bit about what you do in your first year at Krea. A lot of students are very confused about this. They're worried because they're like, oh my God, we don't even get to choose our majors. And you know, what I honestly feel is that if I had had this opportunity to have this kind of first year experience, I would be over the moon with happiness. I may not have known it at the time because I'm worried and I want to, you know, get to my major as soon as possible. But now in hindsight, I wish I'd had an education. All of us faculty say this. We all wish we'd had an education like we get at Krea. Ranjit, can I have the next slide? So in your first year, what you're doing is you're doing these core and skills courses. And what they are is an early exploration of our basic philosophy. They reflect our belief in interwoven learning that Professor Vishnu has spoken about, Professor Sundar Ramaswamy has spoken about. And what we do in these courses is get you to think like specialists in different disciplines. How does a mathematician think? How does a mathematician solve problems? That's what you would get in mathematical reasoning. What is creativity? What is creativity not only in the arts, but in the sciences and in the social sciences? That's what you explore in creative expression. You need creativity in any, I mean, that's what employers want in any field. So that's a pioneering course. It's the first of its kind, and the faculty have all together designed these courses. Vikram, I'm not the person who knows the most about core and skills by any stretch of the imagination, because it's all of us who have together worked on every single course description in the core and skills. We've workshopped them together with the Vice Chancellor and the Dean, all of us sitting in a circle. So we have a very close relationship with all the courses, whether we're teaching them or not. Then we have exploring the social and the historical, which comes in trimester 2. We have scientific reasoning. Again, you're getting to think about, like a scientist, you're thinking about societies and cultures and what they do, and exploring the social and historical. At the same time, you're thinking about the role of science. You've got philosophical perspectives. So you're thinking, how do philosophers tackle big questions like, why am I here? And what is the purpose of human existence? So how do they think? How do they reason? How do they communicate? Right? And then we also have literature in the arts, where you're looking not only at how literary scholars and scholars of art like art historians and art educators think, but you're also thinking about how writers and artists think and work. In the next slide, please, Ranjit. We also have skills courses, one of which you start off right away in trimester 1. It's called Writing and Oral Communication. Our students here know about all these courses, so they can answer more questions. We have a course in data analytics. This is also a very pressing need for the hour in terms of us understanding the role of, of machine learning, AI, and understanding how from the back end computer science works, but also how data works, and what kind of role it plays in our lives. So in data analytics, we're really looking at big questions in data science and big questions in machine learning, but from a very from the point of view of somebody who's just trying to understand how people think about data and explore data. We have design thinking, another very important topic for our age. Our design thinking course is linked to issues of sustainability. We also have an ethics course. Ethics is a very important component of our guiding principles. We have a separate course on it. It's also something that we have to think about in every major and every course that we do at Krea. And Introduction to Topics in Computer Science has now changed. I think the name will now be computational thinking, again to reflect how programmers, how computer scientists negotiate the world, negotiate problems. So you learn a little bit of Python programming, but the focus is not to get you interested in computer science. It is for you to understand that world. So if we go on to our next slide, what the core and skills courses do is to introduce students to our guiding principles, which are highlighted in bold. You'll have seen this on the website. So the idea is that you experience in these classes the ways in which your majors will also take on these questions. It's not only, we're not giving you these windows into the social sciences and humanities only for you to shop around for your major. We're doing it so that you have a rounded, holistic view of how knowledge works and how disciplines and areas need to work together in order to produce new knowledge and to try and solve some of the pressing problems of the 21st century. How artists and scientists might work together. How sociologists and environmentalists might work together. I mean, you will start exploring all these different kinds of possibilities. How physicists and philosophers might work together. So we want you to start thinking outside a siloed kind of a view of the world. I saw a lot of questions about what can a commerce student do? What does a biotechnologist do? What, do I have opportunities at Krea? What you have at Krea is an exposure to the liberal arts and sciences that will help you negotiate almost any field. There was also a question about, what can I do with a history major, right? If you look at research always shows that finally you end up in jobs that don't have anything to do with your major. Very often. Some people to go on to, they study economics or they study literature and they go on to be literature professors, but it's a very small percentage of college students that go on to do that. What the Krea education gives you is the opportunity not only to get a sense of how knowledge works, but also how to be comfortable with different subjects, different fields, different disciplines, so that whatever job you're in, whatever career you take up, whatever higher education you take up, you are still sensitive and open to other fields and you're able to collaborate well. So this is the purpose of your first year, to give you a sense of what's out there. And the only thing we ask of you is to be open at that time, to just soak up everything that comes your way. Like I said, if I could have done this suite of courses, I would have lost my fear of mathematics much earlier than I finally did, right? I would have been much more curious about a subject like political science. I didn't even think that those were, areas that I could be interested in. And then I went on to work in a tech company. So for 6 years, and then came back to work in literature. So for somebody like me, this exposure to data analytics and computer science in the first year would have been so useful. I wouldn't have had to learn so many things from scratch in terms of how people in these fields work, think, negotiate ideas, right? What their creativity looks like. So I think I'll end there, but I have one final point to make. And this is that after your first year, you declare your major in your at the end of your 4th trimester at Krea. And the options you have are, you can major in one of the subjects that we offer, or there are joint majors, which is a major in 2 subjects, or an integrated major, which allows you to combine 3 subjects into a major. So, so there'll be more information on joint and integrated majors on our website shortly when we update it. But these are the possibilities that we can offer you right now. But what I would conclude with is that if you have to know that at Krea, your education is going to be holistic. You have to keep an open mind. And those are the kinds of students who will really be able to get the best out of the Krea experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Akira. I think that was such a fine decoding of the first year and really the understanding of why it's called an exploratory year. And I think we've had the maximum number of students raising hands when you were talking. So there definitely are a lot of questions coming your way at the end of the session. But now let me invite the next panelist. So we have Ms. Kala Anand. Kala, thank you for joining us. Kala comes with so Kala is the Director of Partnerships, Career Services and Communications at Krea. Kala comes with a significant education industry experience working in strategic roles at major international private education companies and government organizations. Through a 15-year professional tenure, she has provided advisory services to international universities and government agencies, enabling them to expand their global footprint, customize communication to international markets, and forge sustainable partnerships. She has developed collaborations and linkages for academic institutions with corporate organizations, government bodies, school networks, and research organizations across South Asia, and Middle Eastern regions. Kala, do present, from the Office of Partnerships and Career Services.
Thank you, Vikram. Hello, everyone, and delighted to present this next segment. So at Krea, you've been hearing a fair bit of how everything about Krea is pretty unique. We are challenging in a way what's normal and going through this, moving the paradigm itself for education. To a great extent, partnerships as well is probably in the same realm. At Krea, we look at partnerships very differently. It's really not about who you're working with internationally. Are you talking about a top-ranked university? For us, partnerships is about, does it have an impact on learning? As a student of Krea, does the partnerships that we curate give you opportunities? And to us, that is what is important. And whether that's opportunities in terms of what you like to do, whether it's opportunities in terms of what you not so much like to do, but want to push yourself outside your comfort zone, whether those opportunities are in and around where we are, in and around the country, in the region, or the world. And for us, we look at partnerships like that. And it's not about partnerships just with international universities. When we talk partnerships, we're talking about a whole range of organizations. That could be universities, it could be centers of research, it could be corporate organizations, it could be social impact organizations. So in reality, when we look at partnerships, as I alluded earlier, it's the whole bundle of opportunities that you can access as a student when you walk into Krea. To give you a quick example, before we pull on the slide of just the range of partnerships, we curated so carefully, as I said, to impact on learning. If you were a student who was, for instance, interested in environmental studies, right? One option is you were going to study what you were studying in the university. You have the opportunity to work with a professor on a research project in environment. You will have the opportunity to go to one of the top reputed universities on a short study program on an environmental project. You'll have the opportunity to work while at the university with an international university group of students on an opportunity, or with a corporate organization who is very embedded in the environment or sustainability mandate. And that's the range of opportunities that we talk about when we actually, if you really want to advance your interest. The other aspect to how we curate these partnerships is also not about, are we working just with universities in the West? Are we just working with the top universities? Just coming from the background of education, I think when you're looking at international universities, just going by global rankings is probably not the best way to look at them. When we look at partnerships, we identify universities that are excellent for a certain subject area of study, right? And identify like that. So for instance, if it's environment, we work with a university in Australia that's based right at the Great Barrier Reef, who are ranked #1 in the world for biodiversity and programs like that. If it's policy that you're interested in, if you're interested in economics, you're interested in public policy, in politics, we have a collaboration with the Harris School of Public Policy at the University of Chicago, because we believe that's a practice that they do very well. So as you can see, the range goes from far east to the west, and we go as much as to Ireland and the UK to look at institutions or centers that closely align with the area of expertise, so that you as a student are able to impact upon your learning. I'm just going to pull up a very quick slide. This is just a sample to show you the range of partnerships as well that we have. So that's the 5-minute video. Yes. This, if you actually see, this is just an example as we put out there. This could be an entire range. So for instance, you want to study, work, and study in a startup hub with the University of California, Berkeley, that's a possibility. You want to do work in social sciences with another university, that's possible. One of the partnerships we have in the art space is we host international arts experts. So one is about, this whole caring of, if you like, carbon footprint or the carbon miles. Is not everything is about getting students to fly abroad. What can we do for you in the classroom so we are able to bring those best practices? How could we facilitate for some of your professors to collaborate and work with some of the top academics around the world, so that what they learn comes back to you in your classrooms? So we look at all avenues through which you can actually learn from any of those areas. Psychology, for instance, we've gone ahead and worked with some of so the reason we've partnered with Nottingham Trent University and looking at psychology is because for one, they're very good in that area of psychology. And given how tight the international accreditation for psychology is, this university would accept a student, let's say from a career degree, whose degree is not needed to be accredited by the British Psychological Society. So you can proceed to do a master's, which is otherwise difficult. So that's just to give you a bit. I'm going to just quickly move to the next slide to also show you what we're doing. For instance, our partners are very committed to learning. And this is very important for you to also know that these are the kind of opportunities our students get to hear. I mean, over the next month, we've got about 4 sessions across the world. We are going to bring the best experts. Yesterday, we actually had experts from the University of Oxford who are working on the COVID vaccine come and talk to us. And these are some of the opportunities that we will have. We'll of course share with you through Vikram the link to attend any of these sessions. And if you get an opportunity, you would see how some of our academics are sitting on the same table with academics across the world, of course, virtually, and sharing ideas. I'm going to quickly now touch the next 2 minutes on career services. Another important aspect of my work is the career services. Akila kind of mentioned about it. Just last Tuesday, we actually had the head of Google Research India, Dr. Manish Gupta, who's a thought leader in Google and AI, talk to our students. And we bring experts like this on a weekly basis from the industry to talk to students. If there's one significant statement he said the future belongs to humanities graduates. And he said that very clearly. He articulated that you could be great in technology, but if you didn't have a great understanding of psychology or ethics, the idea of fairness, if you didn't understand social behavior, you could never do well in an organization like Google. So these are some of the cues we are actually beginning to get. A week before, we had a top HR expert as well, who we got to talk to students about how can they better prepare themselves as they progress into the work culture. So that's part of what we do at Career Services. What I'd like to also touch upon quickly is at Krea, one of the major learning outcomes is a sense of social impact and a sense of purpose. We believe at the end of the first year, when you've had all your generic skills, whether that is writing, that's coding, your computer, we go ahead and place you in a social community project. So Ranjit, you can go back to the third slide now. So for instance, this summer, about 80-odd students are going to be working with top development organizations, national and international, doing all sorts of work that is going to impact for betterment of community. And they are going to do projects like designing websites, analyzing data, creating programs. So this is core skills that they have learned in their first year that they will actually apply to real life. And I think this kind of opportunity helps them to come back. And when they come back to actually do their majors, they're able to combine some of these skills and learnings and progress them. And importantly, to go back to our HR expert who said that when she said, when I want to look at a resume from Krea at the end of 3 years, I don't want to see what the student has studied. I want to see who is that student. What are the courses you're passionate about? What is the attitudes and skills you have built over the 3 years? And she was very clear that this is what hiring managers are going to look for. So I think working backwards, it would rest a lot of our responsibility within the Career Services and the partnerships team to build these opportunities for you. And to a large extent, this is how we will actually build it. Happy to answer any specific questions if you like, but I will leave it with that. Thanks, Vikram.
Thank you so much, Kala. We are running a little late on time, but we have two more officers who are going to present, and I think they are both very critical. I think one is the Office of Student Life, and one is Kanchi, of course, from the Office of Outreach, but she's going to represent admissions today, which I think all of you are very keen to know about. But before admissions, I'd like to invite Akshay. Akshay Jain is the Associate Director of Student Life. Akshay, thank you so much for joining us. So growing up in narrow bylanes of Old Delhi, Akshay got an opportunity to study abroad at an impressive age of 14. He received a scholarship to pursue his pre-university as well as his undergraduate program in Singapore. While he majored in economics at NUS, he also explored, admired other disciplines and traveled to more than 10 countries. Following his passion for education, he came back to India to work with the Andhra Pradesh government on the groundbreaking Andhra Pradesh Private Universities Act 2016. Recently, he received his master's in international education policy from Stanford's Graduate School of Education. Now he's back in India helping build Krea University Student Life. He also headed the admissions team to build the first SIS cohort at Krea. Akshay, welcome, and please take it ahead.
Thank you so much, Vikram, and I hope all of you can hear me well. I'll go ahead and share my screen with you. I have a small presentation to share with all of you. So let me just get my screen. Yeah, so today's presentation you've heard from all the colleagues, all of my colleagues before this, ranging from the academics that we offer at Krea, as well as the partnerships, the career service support, and the vision behind the institution. To carry that forward, I would just like to speak about what we're trying to do here at the Office of Student Life in terms of community and well-being. And of course, this is greater importance in the kind of context that we're living in today, given that we are in the midst of a global pandemic. So community and well-being become integral parts, and some of these might have to be moved online, which we've tried to experiment with in the last 3-4 months. But regardless, I think a sense of community and well-being is very important as we navigate these difficult times. So the first point I want to start my presentation with is really to describe what we are trying to do when we talk about a community on campus. When we are talking about a community in a space like a university, and especially a place like Krea University, we are trying to strive towards building a community that is not just self-contained, but it's also in a dialogue with the world outside. And possibly, if all of you come together as a second cohort, build a community that becomes a guiding light for a just, inclusive, scientifically tempered, and engaged society. So that really is the larger vision for what we're trying to do on campus. It's about students learning in the classroom, but as well as classroom learning, applying some of those classroom learnings to their community and bringing that sense of scientific thinking, which Akhila talked about, the kind of dialogue that they take place in the classroom, bringing that flavor into their corridors, bringing that flavor into their student governance structures, bringing that flavor into what they do in terms of art and their creative expression. So that really is the larger vision, that we are able to create a society or a small community on campus that can serve as a shining light or a guiding light for the society outside. And of course, the way we do that is to build a culture of respectful dialogue, discourse. A lot of these skills you'll pick up in your classroom, but also as you navigate the residential living experience at Krea. As all of you might know, we are a residential university. So what you learn in the classroom is immediately transferable to what you're doing in the evening, when you hang out with your friends, when you have dining table conversations, when you're writing your theater script for a next play, when you're preparing for your next dance performance, when you're preparing for a debate. Whatever you do outside the classroom, hopefully we do it in a culture of respect for the other, as well as through a sense of dialogue and a spirit of inquiry. So that's really the larger vision I want to set for what we're trying to do on campus. And then now I'll delve into three specific aspects of what we do at the Office of Student Life. So these are the three broad pillars that we work with. One is student wellness, and I spoke about that in the beginning. Especially in a time like this, it becomes very important for us to take care of each other, as well as for us as a community to come together. So I'll speak a little bit about wellness and what kind of support structures we have for students, because we understand all of you are coming from diverse backgrounds. The first year especially can be daunting because you come and hopefully you're living for the first time away from your home, and that becomes a very intimidating experience for some students. So that's why wellness and some of the support structures we have become important. Second I'll talk about is the student governance, which is again very interesting given that we're in the first year. And this is a question that we get from students that, you know, it's a new university. What is the benefit of going to a new institution? And I think some of the very exciting things that we've done are in that domain where students take an active part in building the institution along with the other stakeholders. And the third thing that I'll discuss is student engagement. And this is perhaps the more traditional sort of approach of, you know, clubs and societies. So that I'll definitely talk about what kind of student clubs that we have, societies that we have, where students curate their own extracurricular experiences. So let me begin by talking about student wellness. And of course, you know, this is really embedded in the ethos of the university on the values of empathy and inclusivity. So we really want students to embrace diversity, to learn through observation about each other, because all of us come from very different backgrounds, and then have, again, coming back to the idea of dialogue and discourse and learn from each other. But the only way we can take care of each other and build a community grounded in those values is by having a shared sense of empathy and inclusivity. And in terms of support structures, right from the orientation program, you will have faculty mentors who are assigned to you to help you navigate not only your academic life, but any social conflict that you're going through, any issues with in terms of your stress or anxiety levels. You can always reach out to a faculty mentor. As you know, right now we have 113 students on campus, and next year we're hoping for another 170 to 180 students. So still a very small student community at the School of Interwoven Arts and Sciences. And we have currently about 35 odd faculty members, and adding more to that number soon. So we'll have, of course, every faculty only taking care of about 7 to 8 or maximum 10 students. So you can expect to get a lot of face time with your faculty mentors, and they will help you navigate some of the difficulties. Alongside that, what we are putting together now after the first year is what we are calling the peer support program. So this is being done in partnership with our mental health partner called SCARF, which is an organization in Chennai. And we're going to recruit and train about 8 to 10 peers or students who are going to act as your first sort of port of call in a time of distress or anxiety. There's a lot of research to back this up, that at that age, usually you would find it easier to talk to a peer or a friend who is similar aged compared to always talking to a mental health professional or talking to a faculty member. So that's really the idea behind building a peer support program, where you have these peer counselors who are trained to deal with issues of anxiety or stress or any emergency that the student might be facing. And thirdly, of course, we have on our campus enabled access to mental health professionals. We have counselors who visit our campus. We have a 24/7 online counseling platform called Your Dost. And we also have SCARF, which is available to us as a mental health partner, who students can reach out to in case they want to approach a mental health professional. The other thing that we are trying to now do for student wellness is to build a dashboard of sorts to collect data on wellness. So all of our strategies and all of our processes for student wellness become much more sharply captured. And students are leading these projects. We have had 2 students work with us on work study. Work study is again another policy that we have to allow students to work alongside their academic journey, and they can join various teams, including the Office of Student Life, the Partnerships Office, or the Outreach Office as ambassadors, as project managers, and so on, to help build some of these projects. And we have had recently 2 students come together and produce a report on wellness to guide strategy on this front. And all of this, what we're trying to do is to really help students flourish not only academically, but physically, mentally, and emotionally. So that's the first concept of student, or the first pillar of our work called student wellness. And then we have student engagement. Okay, I didn't miss a slide. We have the second topic, which is student engagement. And this is what I talked about in terms of the clubs and societies. These range from music, theater, sports, gardening, cooking, mindfulness. So we have a myriad sort of activities and interests, which I'm sure all of you coming in to Krea will also have a wide range of interests, and you can explore them through the various clubs and societies. And of course, you can take initiative to build your own clubs and societies as well. And that's really the exciting part, as being, you know, part of the first few cohorts of the student body. You really get to build the culture and the flavor of the student life and community that happens on campus. Alongside these clubs and societies, we of course encourage students to take part in intramural or intercollegiate sports and cultural events. They go to weekends. On weekends, they go to Chennai. And last year, I remember they participated in some of the intercollegiate festivals as well at IIT Madras, SRM University, and so on. So slowly, we're building a culture of not only participating within the university. As you know, we have another school called the Graduate School of Business, combined strength of students, about 600 students. So we, of course, can host a lot of competitions within the Krea boundary, but we also encourage students to go to Chennai and possibly venture out into other states and other college tournaments as well. And this is entirely student-led. All the clubs are led by students. They're formed by students. Their vision is formed by students. And this is really aimed at building character through exercising initiative, collaboration, and leadership among students. And my final point is about student governance. And as I was saying, this is the part which has been quite exciting. I remember in August when we had the first class come in, we didn't have these many structures with us at that time. And the whole of last year has really gone into co-creating many of these with the students. And it began with those early days, early months when we had conversations with students in what we call late night town hall meetings, where the entire student community, as you can see here, came together, discussed and deliberated on what kind of social contract they want to have, what kind of governance structures they want to have, and of course then voted in an interim government called the main hall. And they also asked the faculty to select some students who will become the part of the Constituent Assembly, which is in the process right now of drafting the first SIS student constitution. So as you can imagine, the experience of being the first few cohorts is very special. You're really embedded into building some of these institutions together, the student governance structures and the student constitution. And this is also, again, going back to my first point, which is aimed at nudging students to reflect on their own community, to build a greater sense of equality, fraternity, fellowship among the students, and really also bringing in what they're learning in the classroom when they take courses on history, when they take courses in political science, and applying that to their own community. So I'll stop there, and we have a couple of students who are with us today, Sanjana and Sarthak, who I'll invite now to share their own experiences along with what I've shared. So Vikram,
thank
you can
you.
ask.
Yeah. Can we have, Sanjana, can you come online first? Can you go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone, I am Sanjana Dangli. I just finished my first year at Krea University and I'm from Bombay. I plan on majoring in psych next year, psychology. And I studied under the ICSE board till the 10th grade at Dhirubhai Ambani International School. And I went on to do my 11th and 12th grade under the state board at Jai Hind College. So when in Bombay, most people tend to just stay back for their undergrad degree instead of going out after having done the state board, which is something I had also considered in the beginning. And I kind of applied to Krea more as an option for me to look at possibly. But as I started doing a lot more research about Krea, and especially the first course, the first year courses that they had, I kind of started realizing about how unique the whole opportunity is. And I knew I'd be missing out on a lot. And even though initially when I first decided whether I was contemplating whether to apply or not, I wasn't too sure if I wanted to do liberal arts because I went in knowing exactly what I wanted to do as my major. I wasn't confused about anything, which is why liberal arts was something I thought wouldn't be like perfect for me. I thought I could just continue doing what I was doing. But this whole experience of the first year and doing courses which I would have never otherwise done has been a massive learning experience for me because I've done a lot of new things and learned a lot of new things, which has honestly been one of the greatest experiences for me so far. Before I came onto campus, being from a city, I was a little worried about how I'd learn to adapt to being somewhere that's so far away from a city. But I think the OSL, along with a lot of my friends, kind of made that whole process seamless. And I was able to adapt a lot easier, even though initially I did feel a little bit of, I wasn't in, I wasn't very like happy necessarily being away from the city, but I learned to adapt to it eventually. And that was a really good process, I guess. Kriya's also kind of taught me how to take initiative and continue if there's something that we feel as students that we require on campus, whether it be taking classes for dance or starting football training sessions, which are all peer run. It was basically just if you want to do something, you take the initiative and you do it, which is something that has made me grow a lot as an individual as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjana. Sarthak, please.
Hello, my name is Sarthak Jaiswal. I am from Jamshedpur, Jharkhand. I studied in Hilltop School, which is an ICSE school, and I took science was my stream in class 11 and 12th. And Jamshedpur being the city that it is with a lot of industrial influence in it, so I had only two options after 12, which is either commerce or science. And I really wanted to break out of that rut, and I did, but I didn't know what to do. So liberal arts came as here for me, and I started exploring the idea of liberal arts, and then applied to a lot of universities abroad, applied to a lot of universities within India as well. But what really attracted me to Krea was, first of all, the KICs that happened, which really exposed you to the exact ideology of Krea. And for us, it was really difficult because we were the first cohort, and this was the first admission procedure that was happening. And right as you just enter the KIC through the entire process, which is when you start with your field trips, to your discussions, to your interviews, it didn't really feel like a college interview where you're usually really intimidated by the panelists, and the panelists really want to know what you know. But here the tables were reversed, and the panelists wanted to know you instead of what you know. And that really struck me as something that is really different about this university. And then since then, it has been a journey that I can cherish. The one year that I've spent here is something that I cherish really much. And we started our own student newspaper. We started our own podcast. As Akshay mentioned, that we designed our own interim government structure. We're writing our own constitution. We design our own food menus. We design how the college, our living spaces are. We design we are so involved in the entire building of the culture of Krea that I'm really glad to be a part of it. And even in this pandemic, how the entire community has adapted to the new normal, whether it be through online classes or online KICs or this online open house. It really shows what the Krea ideology is and the commitment to providing a really standard educational experience to every student that is involved here. And I'm really glad to be a part of this journey.
Thank you so much, Sarthak. And really thank you for sharing that honest opinion. I think that is going to help a lot of students taking their decisions now. And finally, I think we are almost at the end of the session, and we haven't been able to take any questions. I'm really sorry. But if all the panelists agree with me, we can extend the session by another 15 minutes and take a few questions. And now, I'd like to invite Ms. Kanchi Khanna, and she's going to talk about really the million-dollar questions that you have. So she's going to talk about an ideal profile of a Krea candidate. So Ms. Kanchi Khanna is a communications and marketing professional. She completed her Bachelor of Fine Arts, a comprehensive 5-year degree from Punjab University, followed later with an MBA in marketing and sustainability from Terry University, New Delhi. She was awarded university gold medals both at her undergraduate and postgraduate level. She started her career as a communications designer, working in the field of advertising and marketing for 6 years before moving to the education industry. She worked as an art and design teacher for over a decade and later took on education management. She's taken up the promotion of liberal education in India and the SAARC nations. Earlier as a director outreach at Ashoka University and now as the director of outreach at Krea University. Kanchi, please, may we request you to come.
Thank you, Vikram. I think I was, thank you. I was going to tell you to skip the introduction so that we don't waste time, but thank you so much for that. If we can have my slides up, please. These are just 2 slides.
Ranjit?
Yeah. Okay. So Krea's unique selection process is committed to high academic merit, and it values uniqueness in each student. The process actually builds back from the mission of Krea, which is to enable high potential individuals to learn and create positive, catalytic, take impact ethically. It looks like the qualities, we look at the qualities that we want in the graduates, and then we look at the qualities that we want the incoming students to have. This process has actually allowed us to look beyond academic performance and admit a class of very high potential students. Our intention is to build a class where the brightest minds from diverse backgrounds come together to co-create a rich learning experience for everyone. In fact, the team actively reaches out to regions across the country and beyond, of course, to look for exceptional students to join the program. Students come from different geographies, socioeconomic and academic backgrounds, and with a variety of interests and perspectives. At Krea, we value these qualities of resilience, empathy, integrity, teamwork, openness to different perspectives, what you see on the right-hand side of your screen. We are interested in knowing how you may have demonstrated some or all of these in your academic or extracurricular or your personal life. Can I have the next slide, please? So Krea admission cycle really extends from November to June. Each cycle is divided into 3 or 4 rounds, and candidates can submit their applications in any one of these. Admissions now is a 2-stage process. The first stage is the application form which is available on the website. You need to fill this in, submit before the deadline of the round that you're applying in. This application form asks for your personal story, academic scores, co-curricular, extracurricular activities, and also your personal details. Based on this application form, we shortlist students whom we want to invite for the next stage, which is the immersion day. Now, we want you to know that we are looking for both what you have done in the past, which is what you are, and what potential you may have for the future, which is what you want to be over the next 4 years, and especially at Krea. So use the personal story to give us a peek into who you are, what you value most, the experiences that have shaped you, and your interest in the program. We also want you to know that we are not just looking for scores, not just looking at your school scores. We believe that sometimes these may not be a true indicator of your academic potential. We are keen to understand the most distinctive part of you, your beliefs, your motivations, and your ambitions. We look forward to listening about your successes, but also about what you've learned from your failures. We look at the opportunities that you got and how well you use those opportunities. The second stage, which is the immersion day, Applicants are presented with a case study. We evaluate how you engage with the case individually first and then in a group. You also get to spend some time with the panelists in a one-on-one conversation, which Sarthak was referring to, which is really not an interview, but an attempt to getting to know you better. Right? There is also a short quantitative test. Earlier that used to happen the day when you came for immersion, but now because everything is happening online, we conducted once for all students from across the country and wherever they are from, together on a single day. It's just a half an hour short multiple choice question, which has multiple choice questions, and nothing you really need to prepare for. Your basic knowledge of grade 10 mathematics should be enough to see you through this. Right? So I'm really going to stop here because I can see 44, 45 questions in the Q&A box. And I think, Vikram, you can start asking questions, and if there are any particular questions around admissions, we'll answer those as they come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kanchi, and thank you for. Hello.
Go ahead, you can read the questions.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let's start with the questions. I think we have 40 questions in 10 minutes, so we'll sort of have to do a rapid fire here. So the first question is, do you offer any short-term courses for those who have either deferred joining a university to the next semester or next year? Probably both of them, Dr. Sundar can answer. Will you be recruiting more faculty this year?
The answer to the second, Vikram, is yes. And the answer to the first is we are not planning to offer any short-term courses. We will be offering bridge courses for incoming students to make the gap between school and college easier. But we were thinking of, but in light of the current situation, our focus is really inward right now. But we will plan to eventually offer courses for other constituencies maybe next year.
Thank you. The next question is, I'm a civil services aspirant. How equipped is Krea University to train me to get into civil services? Akhila, do you want to take that? Is Akhila with us? Or Professor Bishnu? Yeah.
I think when I was a student at University of Delhi, there are a lot of students are really interested in taking civil service exams to become civil servant. And I not really kept track of there are a lot of changes happened in the civil service exam recently, which I haven't really kept track of. But I presume that looking at what Krea's courses are all about, they would really make somebody as a good civil servant or good policymaker and so on, because policy making requires the knowledge of many disciplines, let's say economics, politics, sociology, and if you're really thinking of, let's say, environment, the environmental studies and certain sensibilities. So for a policymaker, you need many disciplines, and you also need to anchor your imagination and your commitment to certain values. I mean, here, of course, every civil servant is committed to the constitutional values of India. So I think, in short, Krea's courses are absolutely good, would be good for somebody who's aspiring to become a civil servant, a policymaker in India.
Thank you so much, Professor. The next question is really about psychology. I think none of our open houses, can go by without questions on psychology. So the question is, psychology major comes under BSc in Krea, which is unusual. Is there any difference in curriculum that BA psychology major offers? I think the similar question is with economics. So maybe Dr. Sundar could take this, or.
Let me take the economics, and Vishnu, you can shed light on the other one. So economics, all the majors at Krea, as Dr. Akhila said, will follow the guiding principles. And I think if you just go back and look at the guiding principles, I think those 7 or 8 guiding principles will make the economics major itself quite distinct. And I say this having taught economists for a long time and also being a student of economics. But also the way the university is structured and the fact that we want to break down these silos that exist in other universities between departments. I think what makes you a stronger economist is that you'll certainly have enough economics under your belt when you graduate, but not just the core and the skills, but because you'll be encouraged to talk to students and faculty by taking courses in other disciplines, it actually makes you a stronger economist, whether that's in mathematics or in physics or history or politics. You're still an economist, but you're much more well-rounded because you're exposed to these other disciplines that add credibility to when you go out with an economics degree.
Thank you.
Yes, about psychology, the next question. I think we are in the process of finalizing our curriculum. And we were actually, to be honest, we were actually thinking of toying with the idea whether psychology should be a BA or BAc. But having had a conversation with many psychology professors and researchers within India and outside, it occurred to us, based on what we heard, that maybe it's worthwhile to keep the psychology as a BAc. But to be honest, we were thinking whether it's BA or BAc. The reason being is that that some of the psychology courses are actually pretty much aligned. Some of them, not all. Some of them are aligned to some of the subjects in science. Or there's lab, and there are some experiments and stuff like that. And we didn't want to dispense with all that, because that would make our degree in psychology weaker. So we wanted to keep it in science. But I must say that we also have, as I hear, I'm not really saying because the curriculum is still in the process of being finalized, we will also have a very strong component of social and political psychology, along with the kind of stuff that we get in terms of standard psychology courses. So you would have a combination of things, and we'll also have a combination that will really put you well in the market. And because the market is actually looking for people who are not merely narrowly doing psychology, but doing psychology in a slightly broader frame. And we are thinking that we would be doing something like that.
Yeah. Thank you. So
I'd
next
just like to
question
add one quick thing that even if you're in any major at Krea, you will get a thorough exposure to social sciences and humanities. Even if you're in the sciences, we will constantly be urging you to look at ways in which boundaries are porous between majors and fields.
Akhila, I also wanted you to please elaborate a little bit on the double majors and integrated majors, and so that, you know, there was a question around that.
Yeah. So we have, I did address this. We have joint majors and integrated majors. The joint major involves you taking all the courses that constitute a major, but in 2 disciplines. So you would take 6 here, 6 there, and then the rest of your courses would come from electives, right? So that's what the joint major would be. And then the integrated major requires you to have courses across 3 disciplines. So your capstone, which we haven't really discussed, or your capstone thesis that you would do, every Krea student has to do, would actually have to involve either both the disciplines in the joint major or all 3 disciplines in the integrated major. So that when you go out, you've engaged rigorously in research in the disciplines. That would be the answer. Yeah.
At Kanchi, we also have a minor, which is a sort of a reduced form of a major, and the possibility of also taking what's called a concentration. So the idea is that while you need a degree to graduate from a university, but since people have multiple interests and multiple strengths, it is a way to be mentored and advised and channel your interests in more ways than one. But maybe you just want to do one major and take lots of electives, that's also possible.
I mean, let's say if you are doing a joint major, Kanchi, for example, if a major on average would have 12 to 13 courses, and the 2 years, second and the third academic years at Krea would have, let's say, 22 besides the capstone thesis. So if a major is around 12 to 13, you still have around 9 courses that you can scout around for another major, which would be around 6 or 7 or 5 courses. You can still have few more courses that you can scout around from other disciplines. And if a joint major, let's say 16 or 17 courses for 2 subjects, then you still have another 5 courses to do from other disciplines, other kind of
electives.
Yes, as electives. Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't. Or I think we don't have a double major. That's the thing. What to say? Clarify.
Thank you.
I think there's a question for Kala. So the question is, being too young a university, how about the postgraduate opportunities abroad for students doing the undergrad at SIAS?
So postgraduate after they complete the undergraduation?
Yes.
Yes, I think for all the partners we've signed so far, they have been pretty open to look at the undergraduate curriculum. We haven't done a curriculum mapping, but seamlessly, whether that's with the University College Cork or with the Harris School, in University of Chicago, every partner we've signed, we have, the agreement includes for students to proceed to do master's programs if they wanted. What we are working on with some of these universities is, as a Krea student, what do they get that's a little bit more additional, given, you know, whether that's in the form of waivers, whether we can start some of these programs, you know, early on. So all the agreements we have so far with any of our international partners just include for students to proceed to do masters. As I mentioned, for psychology at the Nottingham Trent, or environment at the James Cook, or the food sciences, or policy at Chicago, all of them, you do have the opportunity to progress to do a master's.
Thank you. Kanchi, we are out of time. Should we continue for another 5 minutes, or what does everybody say? Do we end here? You're muted.
Yeah, so we can stay back, and we can request the panelists, whoever has the time, to please stay back. We have the students also. Yes. So we can continue taking the question and answers for a little while.
I have, of course, answered all the partnerships related ones in the Q&A. So assuming that would answer most of the common questions as well. So I might have to leave because I have another 6:30. But
thank you.
Thank you so much. Happy to answer any other. Thank you.
So I can stay for another 5 minutes if you want.
Okay, sure.
Great. Thank you, sir. I think the next
pick up the
question is
ones
about...
that we can ask Dr. Sundar first.
Okay. So there's one question about considering the present situation, when are classes most likely to start? I think that's a very important question, Dr. Sundar.
It's a very important question, and this is something that we've been thinking very hard about. We have announced the dates of August 17th for the returning second years and September 1st for the incoming first years, which is obviously the concern for this group. And we will, and if you remember when I talked about how we went online, I think we will follow a similar, very deliberative, consultative, check with medical experts, check with our board members. We have a governing council meeting coming up on June 30th, and we will, and it's such a fluid situation, Vikram, as you know, depending on where callers are coming in from the country, it's difficult to predict what even July 15th would look like, or July 1st is going to look like, let alone what August is going to look like. So we are also, the leadership group is also doing a lot of scenario planning for multiple scenarios, you know, assuming we are able to come to campus, which would be a preferred alternative. What would we need to do by way of safety, hygiene, security, all of those things, and heightened even more than we were last year. That is that we're thinking about. And then implementing the protocols of how we do this and how we protect not only the incoming students and the current students, but also my faculty colleagues, my staff colleagues, because the way the virus plays out, it has differential impact depending on whether you're in the 20s or whether you're in your 50s. And a university is like a small city. It has people across a whole range of people, ages. And if we have to do online, we also have scenarios built for that. And in some ways, trimester 3 gave us a lot of experience in terms of thinking about it. And the last option is it might be some kind of a blended one, right? Because if there's another wave or another national lockdown, and we have to follow the rules. I mean, I just want to remind everybody that through all the lockdowns and openings, and Chennai has just entered lockdown number 6, the last category of institutions that have yet to be opened are schools, colleges, malls, and theaters. So we still fall under that category, and we have to obey local laws, national laws. So we will not do anything that jeopardizes. If anything, we will try and exceed that in terms of our protocols, because that is ultimately what's important. The last thing this is something I talked to my faculty colleagues about, which is that if we were to do something online, it may never quite replace the on-site experience of learning from your classmates and your peers. But I think we are very positioned, because the way we come in with the attitude is we will try and deliver this quote unquote, what I call the Krea way of how do you do even the interwoven learning online, so that the students really can benefit, because this is a reality that is affecting every single university and school globally. It's not just because we happen to be in one part of the country. And I think we will feel our way through very carefully. Stay tuned for the website. That's where all the announcements will go. And we will take the decision at the appropriate time. June 19th is still way too early to decide one way or the other, because who knows what even a month looks like. But that doesn't mean we don't have plans for all sorts of scenarios, and then be ready to enact when we decide to make that call. And we're also thinking of maybe doing a survey of parents to make sure parents are comfortable in terms of sending students and assuring them. So we may do some more webinars when we decide which way we go.
Thank you, sir. I think the final question that really, I think as part of outreach, we answer this question every day, but it would be really happy to get everybody's thoughts on this question, starting from you, Dr. Sundar. So the question is, among the new private universities, Ashoka, Krea, Flame, Azim Premji, all appear similar as far as the teaching methods and course selection is concerned. What is it that sets Krea apart?
So, it's a great question. One of our governing council members, who needs no introduction, Raghuram Rajan, was asked this question, I think 2 years ago when we were in Bombay on a fundraiser. And a parent asked him this question. And I liked his answer then. I'll say the same answer now. India needs about 50 to 60 of these places. You mentioned about 4 or 5, right? Given the size of our population and the thirst for such kind of institutions, right? The big universities have yet to change much. I mean, they have changed, but they haven't changed even from the time when I went there, right? So what we are trying to do, this ecosystem, and that's, if you take a model from the US or Europe, I mean, they have a number of places that fall into that ecosystem, and each one, thrives because they do something distinctive. So then we come to what is our distinction. I think the interwoven learning is something that we are very proud of. The way we try and weave this together is one element of distinction. And I think it's okay to have similarities with other institutions. As I said, we are in good company. But I think what makes us distinct is, from a curriculum standpoint, an interwoven learning approach, from an administrative standpoint, to artificially not create silos and to actually have the courage to break down these silos and say you're a member of not the economics department, but of the social science division, which means you will be evaluated by colleagues in social sciences and not just by colleagues in economics when you're up for a review. And we want to actually encourage you to not only publish in economics, but maybe cross-teach and cross-fertilize research with students and faculty in other disciplines. Not many universities do that very easily. And I think the last thing is, because of the fact that the sponsoring body of IFMR, as I mentioned, already had a business school, and these cutting edge research centers, one of which, the Poverty Action Lab, which is the headquarters for South Asia, and it's the MIT Center. And it was in the news recently because the founders got the Nobel Prize in Economics, Abhijit Banerjee and Esther. I mean, and their executive director came to Sri City to talk to the faculty and talk to the students. It's a great opportunity for undergraduates to sort of start to think about widening their horizon, because you have these centers as part of the university to take advantage of. And I think so. I think it's those elements, Vikram, that I would say give us an interesting distinction. But I think it's perfectly fine, as Raghu said. India needs about 50 of these, and right now I can count 5 of them on one hand.
Can I just add one more thing?
Sure.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to what Professor Sundar Ramaswamy mentioned. That is, I think our class size, to the best of my knowledge, in terms of the university that you mentioned, our class size and our core and skill courses, the range that we have, would also, I think, differentiate us positively from some others in India. And which means that, the attention that the students get, the environment for interaction in a Krea's classroom would be qualitatively, I would suggest, better. Although these ideas are, every university is bound to kind of think about these ideas because they're good ideas. There's no doubt about it.
Vikram, would it be possible for the students to respond to this? I think that would be
absolutely.
Nice
Sanjana,
Sanjana or Sarthak.
I think,
Sarthak, are you with us?
Yeah. I think Professor Sundar actually really touched upon this. The interwoven aspect is what people usually confuse it with the interdisciplinary approach with which a lot of universities in India are also offering. But interwoven learning is a step ahead, and it actually embraces the idea of interdisciplinary learning. And through the first year courses and the foundational year courses, you really get the idea of how in the curriculum itself, the porous boundaries are met, and science interviews with philosophy and music and art and history. And we're really able to get this experience through on paper and experience it firsthand. That it really sets the entire, it sets Krea apart from any other university.
Yeah, I think everyone already covered most of the points, but I think especially the first year courses, the fact that everything is so diverse, and even if you have come in not having done most of the subjects, you're still learning a lot of new things. And even though it's even if it might be completely new to you, it still starts from scratch, and it allows you to learn and experience a lot of subjects that you might not have necessarily enjoyed earlier, because you're looking at it from a completely different lens now. And I think that's, at least personally for me, that's what's been great about Krea.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. I think thank you so much, Dr. Sundar and Professor Vishnu and Professor Akhila for joining us and spending so much time with us. Thank you so much again